Hey there, welcome back to Viewpoint Christian Academy for another Monday Moments where we have the opportunity to talk about issues surrounding Christian education. I'm Dr. Adam Rondeau, Director of Viewpoint Christian Academy, where we have been empowering parents for Christian education since 1984 using our proven, biblical, individualized, and mastery-based approach. Today, in our Monday Moment, we're going to talk about the idea of special needs and Christian education. Stay tuned. Okay, let's talk real quick about my background, because a lot of times when it comes to special needs education, special needs education, people are like, what is your certification? What are your degrees? What is your experience? This, that, and the other thing. So let me just give you real quick my experience in regards to special needs, and I'll define that term in just a moment. But I had a brother, as I was growing up, he was 4 years older than I, who had cerebral palsy. He was a quadriplegic. He was also blind. He was not able to speak, nor was he able to eat. He was a very involved person. So for all of his life, he lived till he was 23 years old. For all of his life, my family had to care for him. We had to put him in a wheelchair, move him around. We had to pick him up and carry him from one place to the next, care for him, clean him, feed him, everything, every day of his life. So I understand the extent of what we call special needs. And the care that is often required for certain individuals because of their impairments. Our family loved him. We cherished him. We cared for him. We honored him. We honored his life. And as I was growing up, that's the way it was. So obviously you can tell from my beginning, I have had exposure and experience in the area of special needs in that extreme. Fast forwarding to today, my wife and I also have a burden and a desire to help individuals with special needs, and we'll define that term again, as I said, in just a moment. Because our own home experience is that we have 2 children with autism. I have other family members with autism. I know a lot of individuals, and I know I'm focusing in, honing in here a little bit on autism, and I probably will, and a lot of what I say will be through the lens of specifically the cognitive impairment of autism. And I know that's a wide, varied spectrum. But we're going to talk about that today as well. So what do I mean by a special need? Well, specifically what I mean by special needs is typically it would involve a physical ailment, but more so along the lines of what I'm thinking today is not just physical, maybe perhaps someone is in a wheelchair, or perhaps they're missing a limb, etc. That's not specifically what I'm referring to. Mostly what I'm going to address today is the issue of cognitive impairments. Cognitive impairments. I know this, over the years, the terminology for this has changed so much. But the idea is that something along the lines of autism, or perhaps another issue that might affect the brain and the ability of the person to think clearly, coherently at times. So let's talk about what role does Christian education play in the lives of those that might have such special needs. Now, I want to start from this premise. I'm going to just lay a philosophy. This is probably not going to be the only time that we talk about this issue. But let me just try to lay maybe a groundwork for a philosophy here. Back in I think it was about 2017 for Down Syndrome Day, International Down Syndrome Day, there was a video produced called Not Special Needs. And the idea behind the video was it featured several individuals with Down syndrome, and they were making the statement and making the point that they didn't have quote-unquote special needs. For instance, they said, look, it would be a special need if we could only eat dinosaur eggs. Or it would be a special need if we needed a cat to give us a massage every day. Or it would be and they kind of went off and made a play. I'll put a link in the description. But they made a play on the idea that it's not really a special needs. It's actually what? It's actually human needs. They need education, they need jobs, they need opportunities, they need love, they need care. So when we say special needs, I think we need to be careful that we're not We're not dehumanizing the individuals that have those needs. Just because it's a special need doesn't mean that that person isn't equally human just like us, isn't equally human just like everyone else. They have human needs. Really, we call them special because it's the same need that everybody else has. They just really need more of it than most people do. So maybe it's not so much a special need as much as it is a greater need. And I hope that stirs in something in your mind, because really we have to be careful not to dehumanize these individuals and say, oh, they have special needs. We don't have to worry about meeting their needs because they're special. Someone else will take care of it. We'll let, they're an exception to the rule as far as things like Christian education go. No, 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 no. They are still human beings. They have the same human needs as every other kindergartner, every other high schooler, every other middle school student. They have the same human needs. They just have a greater need for it to be met. So in that way, it's special because same need, greater requirements, greater effort that has to be put into it. And so therefore, I want to encourage and challenge you today, if you're listening to this and you're considering the idea, does Christian education apply to special needs? Yeah, I think it does. It really, really does. Especially to the spiritual component. And that's what I want to hone in on today and talk about for a few minutes, is that special needs students don't have a special spiritual need. They've got the same spiritual needs, just greater requirements, greater need in that regard. And I think the challenge for the church and Christian parents as a whole, believers as a whole, is for us to see the greater need and not to say, oh, it's a special need and just kind of minimize it. The challenge is to say, greater need met. Greater need met. So let's talk about three things today real quickly. The needs are the same, just greater. And it's in regards to these three things. And when I say greater, I don't mean that, okay, we're going to talk about a few things. I don't mean that they are worse than other people in some regards. I mean that it may take a little bit more effort, a little bit more creativity, and a little bit more work to meet the need. That's what I mean. So let's talk about three things real quickly. All right. Number one, because they are human and not aliens, special needs students, whether they have autism, Down syndrome, whatever the case may be, right? Special needs people also are human beings. And because they are human beings, what does that mean? It means that they have a sin nature. It means that they too have a sin nature. I mean, directly we can look at them and say because of their impairment, it is directly a cause of sin. The cause of that is sin, right? The reason why we have people in our world today with these special needs, these cognitive impairments, is because sin entered the world. Because of sin, the result of sin has been all kinds of things. The curse of sin has brought this about. So yes, when we look at them, we see, now they are not a quote-unquote sin child, but their condition, just like our human plight and our human condition, is a direct result of the fact that sin entered the world. When Adam and Eve were in the garden, and Adam took of the fruit, as in Adam all die, sin was passed on. This is the biblical doctrine. And yes, their condition is a result of sin entering into the world, just like death, etc., so on and so forth. These things are a result of sin. But also, we also need to understand that they too have a sin nature. Now, when they act inappropriately, when they do things that make us feel uncomfortable, and that happens, right, with the special needs student. Sometimes they do things that cause us to feel like, uncomfortable, etc. This is not because they're animals. No. It's not because they're animals. It's because they sin just like you and me. They're sinners, just like you and me. They have a sin nature. Now, because of their condition, because of their special need, there's probably going to be a greater need for understanding and a greater need for patience and helping them, because they don't have the filter that a lot of us have to help rein in that sin nature sometimes, right? So they need more understanding, they need more assistance, they need more effort, they need more love, they need more grace in that regards, but they still have a sin nature. So why are you saying this? Why are you bringing this point about? Because I think it's important for us to have a proper philosophical basis for addressing the needs of special needs in regards to Christian education. They have a propensity to sin just like you and I do. So we shouldn't be surprised when they do. We shouldn't excuse it. We shouldn't say, oh, big deal. Oh, this is because of their special needs. No, it's because they're a sinner. And they too are going to act out and act inappropriate. And maybe they'll even have a harder time filtering it and controlling it because of their condition. So here, number one, they're human beings, and so therefore they have a sin nature. Number two, because they are human beings and they have a sin nature, they also need the gospel of Jesus Christ. Yes, we have to preach Jesus to students, to individuals, to young people and old alike that have special needs. Now, you may say, but people just don't understand. Well, can I be clear with you? They don't have the capacity to understand. They're not going to make it. Can we look at 1 Corinthians chapter 2 for a minute? And Paul says that the gospel is foolishness to the people of the world. They don't get it. Sinners out there that are blinded by Satan, they don't get it either. And sometimes it's like beating our head against the wall trying to get them to understand that they're a sinner and they need Jesus as their Savior. Well, so it's human condition. It's human condition. We still need to give the gospel to them. We still need to preach it to them. Now, you'd be like, well, some of you may be like, well, but what about the idea of accountability? I mean, if they can't understand and comprehend and grasp the gospel, if they can never make a confession of faith, then, God understands that and He will just allow them, grace them in to the kingdom. He's not going to punish them and send them to hell for their sins. Okay, I understand this idea of accountability issues, and I probably would lean towards that way as well. I think I would agree with you if that's where you're coming from. That, yes, there is a level of accountability. In other words, a young child who's not able to yet comprehend the gospel, they perish, they die. God would allow them to go into heaven. Maybe a child in the womb. Yeah, I would agree with that. I agree that there is an idea of accountability and the ability to give an account. I agree with that. However, I do not agree that it becomes an excuse for us to neglect the sharing of the gospel with them. It's not an excuse for us to say, oh, we can be lazy in that regards. No way. Now let me share with you a personal testimony. My son, one of my sons, when he was a younger boy, 4, 5, 6, maybe 7, I can't recall exactly around the age, but he used to say, I don't want to go to heaven and I hate Jesus. Again, this is one of my sons with autism. And the reason why he didn't want to go to heaven and he hated Jesus is because he didn't want to go anywhere that was different. He knew what home was like. He knew what here was like. He knew what it was like with mom and dad. He didn't want to go anyplace else. He didn't want to go to heaven. He wanted to stay with mom and dad. He wanted to stay at home. So again, he didn't completely comprehend and understand it. It really bothered one of my children. Because they're like, but I need them to trust, I want them to trust Jesus and go to heaven. And they became a matter of prayer and constant witnessing. That was beautiful to watch, right? And his mother and I would also say, but listen, and try to share. And we were patient with him. We didn't get angry. We said, okay, relax. Let's try to share and keep sharing. And we kept doing it. We kept persisting and sharing the gospel and telling him how much Jesus loved him and how much he needed Jesus until eventually he got it. And he realized, you know what? I do want to go to heaven and be with Jesus. I do love Jesus. And he surrendered to Christ. We could have said, oh, he's got a special need, no big deal. No, we persisted in sharing the gospel with him. Guess what, people? I don't care what the need is. We need to persist in sharing the gospel with them. I hope you're understanding the heart of what I'm saying. It's not a special need that we can ignore. It's the same need that we need to meet, even though it's a greater need. And it'll take more work, it'll take more effort. So number 1, they've got a sin nature. Number 2, they need the gospel. And number 3, they also, because they are humans and they need the gospel, they also need discipleship. They also need discipleship too. And how does that tie into Christian education? That means they need a Christian education, because education equals discipleship. And so if the education that these children, these students, these people are receiving is their discipleship, then we have to be extra diligent and we have to work harder to meet the greater need. If students without these special needs require discipleship, then that means that the students with the special needs also require that same discipleship, but we have to approach it understanding that it's going to require more grace, it's going to require more love, it's going to require more effort. It's the same need, but it's a greater need. It's a greater need. So how do we look at that? Well, I think that it's a mistake and a problem for us to take those most vulnerable, those with the greatest need for discipleship that we have, and put them and turn them over to the secular humanist government and say, look, these are the special ones that we have. We don't think we can meet their great need, so you take them and you do something with them. Wait a minute. Now, if they're humans and they have a sin nature and they need the gospel and they need discipleship, then doesn't it make sense that we as parents of students in this situation, of children in this situation, or the church as a whole, should not say and should not be like, you know what? We got to do something about this. We got to do something about this. Now, let me also understand that I know that there are caveats and there are nuances in this kind of scenario. There are some students, some young people that have such great needs that maybe a church school might not be equipped to meet it. Now, I think that homeschool could almost always work, but there may be elements of things like, physical therapy, right? Occupational therapy, speech therapy. I understand these things. And in my own home, we have taken advantage of some of those services because they've been in need. We've taken advantage of some of those services that have been offered, but we've never allowed them to be entrenched in the system. We said, you know what, it doesn't matter. We were committed from the very beginning. I don't care if our children have autism. We're going to do what we have to meet that need. We had to work hard. We had to spend a lot of money. We had to make sacrifices. I understand. There also may be times when it's like, you know what, this child has so many great needs, and I'm not in any way condemning anybody who says, you know what, this is a unique situation. Okay, that's fine. But if that's the case, then you're going to have to work harder and greater to overcome some of the false philosophies that are still going to be presented in the classroom. You're going to have to do you understand what I'm saying? There's never an excuse not to meet the great need. Hey, I hope this has made sense. I hope this has been a little bit of blessing. I hope it's got you to thinking a little bit. I'd love to hear your comments. This is a big topic. This is not the only time we're going to address this topic. There's a whole lot of things that we can talk about here as well. So it's just kind of the tip of the iceberg, but I feel like this is a good topic that we need to think about and discuss. Special needs, well, they're the same human needs. They're just greater. Hey, I hope this has been a blessing to you. God bless. Give it a thumbs up, share it, like it. See you next time. Have a great day.